Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I'm Susan Axelrod, editor of Culture, and we are very pleased to be partnering today with Foods and Wines from Spain for this fascinating presentation on olive oil and mineral water. We are going to be talking with a couple of experts who are going to tell you why you need to have these products on your store shelves. But before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. Some of you may know all of this because you've done these before, but please use the chat feature or the Q&A for your questions, and we'll field some of those during the presentation. And we'll also have a time at the end for a Q&A, about 10 minutes. So today you're in for a treat. Spain is the #1 producer of olive oil in the world in both quantity and quality. And Jeffrey Shaw, director of Foods from Spain at the Trade Commission from Spain, is uniquely qualified to tell you all about it. He's going to lead you through a tasting of some exceptional Spanish olive oils. I hope you have your wine glasses set up and ready. Can you see those with your different oils? And then you will hear from Ariadna Prats, who is the International Business Manager at Santanyol Mineral Water. All bottled water, all mineral water is not the same, and Ariadna is going to tell you why. Okay, without any further ado, Jeffrey, let's get started.
Thank you, Susan. On behalf of Foods and Wines of Spain, thank you for joining us today. A special thank you to Culture Magazine for organizing today's session. Spain has a rich centuries-old food tradition. Phoenicians, Romans, Visigoths, Moors, and the Age of Exploration have all left their influence, and this we can see in its culinary traditions. Today, we're going to share with you olive oil and mineral water. Olives and olive oil, if you go to Spain, which I hope you do, you'll find out are very much part of Spain's gastronomic culture. So let me share with you some visuals will come to life. Let's start off with a very, very brief history. And before I start with this, I really want to establish what are you going to learn today? Hopefully two things. Number one, you're going to have a very basic technique on how to evaluate an extra virgin olive oil and determine that it is good, what makes it good. But as I said, a basic level. This isn't meant to be an advanced course or a tasting. It's really just trying to give you the basics. And secondly, hopefully you'll have a better appreciation, if you don't already have it, of some unique extra virgin olive oils from Spain. And you'll see that they are not all the same, but they are very good. Starting off, as historians can best tell us, Olea Europea, which is the tree of the olive, its origins from Asia Minor. That was basically Iran, Iraq, and then it spread throughout the Mediterranean. Phoenicians, Romans, and different cultures were the ones that really took it across. And quite possibly it's the Romans who started it and implanted it in the Iberian Peninsula, particularly Spain, and it has continued. So as you can see, we basically have had it in Spain for hundreds of years, and the Olea Europea, quite possibly not in its current state, has been around for at least 3,000 years. So it has a very, very long history. At this stage, I would ask you all, have you been to Spain? And by looking at some of the names of participants I recognize, I guess some of you have, and some of you are Spaniards. But anyway, really very much encourage you, do go to Spain. It's the best way of appreciating it, understanding it, and really taking it in. And one of the ways to travel is Spain has a very good system of fast speed trains from Madrid out to different parts of Spain, to the north, towards Catalonia, and towards the south. So you get on this train, the AVE, the bird, you'll start going south. You look out the window, and suddenly you're going to see green trees, tree after tree after tree after tree. And then you probably come to a realization, these are olive trees. Well, Spain has 300 million olive trees. That's out of a total population worldwide of about 700 million. So we have a lot of olive trees. How do we know we have that? They count them with a satellite. You have these huge satellite pictures, and one by one, each olive tree is counted. And that's how we know we have the number. And as Susan pointed out, we're number one in olive oil, but not just number one in quantity, but also number one in quality. And number one in quantity is an average year. We can be a little bit under half or a little bit over. This year, we will see. As a lot of you know, if some of you are in the business, you will recognize that we've had a very dry summer. So we have actually not as much fruit. So the yields are going to be low. We don't know yet where that's going to come out, but a lot of talk is going on the industry. But for sure, we're going to have less than we normally have, but that still puts us in the leading position in world production. This just graphic gives you a quick idea visually of the amount that Spain produces. But of course, you should question, have a little criteria, criticism, and say, well, Jeffrey, you know, you're representing Spain. You're paid to tell us that Spain is wonderful. And this is where typically I would encourage you, just look at contests, look at publications, and you will see what they say. For example, here, Spanish producers achieve record success at world competition. And this is the New York International Olive Oil Competition, 128 awards. On average, we say 77% of those that entered received an award. That's the highest ratio of entries to awards by a country. The Wine Spectator, some of you may know, very well respected publication in the world of wine. They, a few years ago, carried out an article on Spain that was not just centered on wine, what they traditionally do, but they also looked at the olive oil category. And they were very pleasantly surprised to discover, as a lot of people do, that the long history Spain has of olive oil, but also the quality of that olive oil. And then we look at different competitions that we see throughout the world. We'll see towards the right, I hope you do. Just look at the winners. Number one olive oil in the world, Spain. And then you keep on looking. Yes, Italy is number 2, France came in number 3, and then it's Spain, 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 Spain. Then let's look at another competition where they basically here look at all the competitions, total them up, and see where things are coming. Oops, I gotta go back. Apologies for that. And you see again, Spain has a lot of the top oils. And interestingly, one of the olive oils that we're going to taste today, the Goya Organics, is one of the prized olive oils in 2021. Olive oil comes from a fruit. The olive is a fruit, a very peculiar fruit, at least I find it, because you typically pick it in the late fall, early winter. They can begin picking them in October, but mostly they will leave it to later to November or December. And very much like a wine, the taste of the product will be very much influenced by the varietal, where it's grown, water conditions, when it was picked, and the skill of the miller, and how that has been stored. So all these things will come into play in determining the quality of the oil. Also, another important thing is the type of olive, when it was picked, will be very important. Here we have an olive like the Arbequina, which is very popular. And we see the Picual on the bottom right, which is so much bigger. And if you notice, the Arbequina has very little fruit in relationship to the pit. While we look at a varietal like the Picual, has a lot more fruit in relationship to the pit. Then another decision that they're going to have to make is when to pick it. Let me I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So Spain has about 264 varietals. And I say about that because year to year, agronomists review the varietals. They look at the names, they look at the types, and they will have discussions. You know, this varietal from this region really is the same as this other one, so it should be the same name. So that's why the numbers go up and down a little bit, but it pretty much stays in this. The important thing is really, there are probably about 5 varietals, which I would call the workhorses of Spain. Picual is the number 1. It's associated with the region of Andalusia, Jaén being the principal area from where the varietal was produced. Then we have Cornicabra, which is Castilla-La Mancha. Then we have also Hojiblanca, again, in Andalusia. And then Arbequina, very popular in Catalonia, native to that area, but also because of its popularity, it has been cultivated in other areas of Spain and other areas of the world. So you begin to see it there as well. Those are pretty much the main varietals you will see being used in olive oil. Traceability. Very much like wine, we have designations of origin, which is really protected designation of origin. It's a European system backed by European law. It's a whole structure which is codified in law to how that particular product is produced. Where it's produced is important. The varietal of product, for example, the milk of a certain sheep from a certain region, a particular type of olive that is grown and associated with a certain region, all that is codified. But it's not just the location and the varietal, it's also how and the when are part of that process. And then each bottle, each product has a unique number. So it's completely traceable to where that olive oil came from. Right now, we have 32 PDOs, 24 of these recognized right now by the European Union. And at this stage, I'm going to ask our culture media people to help us out and to play a short video, which is actually very good. That's a very good job of explaining how olive oil is made. They do it very succinctly. It's about 3 minutes. So I'd ask you, be patient with me. I tend to be the #1 enemy of saying, please don't put a video on a video presentation, but this does a particularly good job. So over to you, Josie.
Civilizations have been producing olive oil for thousands of years. In the most simple terms, olive oil is the consumable liquid extracted from crushed olives. Traditional methods of obtaining olive oil date back to ancient times, and the process didn't change very much until the 20th century. Today, production technology is becoming more and more advanced, allowing suppliers to provide better quality olive oil than ever before. Olive oil starts in the groves, where olives grow on trees before being harvested. Traditional olive groves often contain trees that are hundreds of years old, spaced far enough apart that the branches expand broad and wide. These trees were typically harvested by hand, and today are harvested with a combination of people and tools, such as handheld shakers, nets, and tractors, depending on the landscape. In the last few decades, new plantings typically opt for a more efficient, high-density layout, where the trees are closer together in order to allow faster harvesting using mechanical harvesters, such as the trunk shaker and umbrella-style catcher. The newest type of grove is a super high-density layout, where trees are planted hedgerow-style and can be harvested very quickly using a machine that drives over the top of the trees and catches the olives on a conveyor within the unit. In the Northern Hemisphere, including the Mediterranean basin, the harvest runs from October through the following January, depending on the weather, region, and olive variety. In the Southern Hemisphere, the harvest runs from April through July. After the olives are collected, they are delivered to a mill for processing. Depending on the region of the world and the size of the local industry, mills may be small neighborhood centers or large industrial facilities. In either case, the general production process is the same. First, the olives are separated from any branches, leaves, or debris and sprayed or washed, but only with water. Next, the olives are crushed to form a paste. Traditionally, this was done with stone crushers, but modern machines such as hammer mills and grinders have replaced stones today. After crushing, the paste goes through a malaxation phase, which basically stirs the mixture in preparation for extracting the liquids. At this point, the solids and liquids, including both water and oil, are separated from the paste. From the 17th century until as recently as the 1940s, extracting the liquids was accomplished with an olive press that would squeeze the paste on baskets or mats to press out the liquid. Today, millers rely on advanced decanting and centrifugation machines, which help gravity work more quickly by spinning the mixture to generate the separation. After the initial liquids are separated from the solids, a vertical centrifuge can separate any excess water from the oil. Lastly, excess sediment is usually removed from the oil within 24 to 48 hours before the oil goes to its final storage tank. Oil that meets the International Olive Council chemical and sensory criteria for extra virgin olive oil or virgin olive oil is now ready to be blended or bottled. Oil with chemical or extreme sensory defects is refined to move negative odors and flavors. Refined olive oil is blended with virgin or extra virgin olive oil to add flavor and antioxidants back.
Okay, thank you very much. Joseph, if you let me back in, thank you. So I want to pick up where we left off a little bit before with the varietals. A few things you'd have noticed or possibly noticed that I want to bring to your attention. You saw some of the olive trees that were pretty separated, normally about, I would say, 10 feet roughly. And you looked at the ground, you saw some of the olive groves had grass on them, and other olive groves just had soil. I would say that normally the larger scale producers trying to keep everything clean, trying to keep pests away, they would probably have a ground that is mostly soil, very little vegetation. Although olive trees do very, very well with little water, which is one of the reasons why Spain cultivates it. It tends to be pretty much dry country. You'll see another picture where you would have seen a lot of grass possibly growing in the field. As you look at organic methods, what they're trying to do is really have a mix of vegetation and methods that help combat or prevent possible plagues and diseases that could affect the olive tree. One of them being the famous Mediterranean fly, which is always a challenge. So that's just an observation on the olive groves. And going back to the olives, we said that very much the idea of very much like a wine. An olive, as you basically you've seen there, it's just this fruit that matures, that ripens, and as it ripens, the quantity of olive oil in it increases. So the longer you leave it on the tree, the longer you leave it before you pick it, the higher the yield on the oil from that olive. So financially, that would make a lot of sense. You want to leave it as far as you can go, extract the most olive oil out of it. If you do that, you tend to get not very flavorful olive oils. It could still be a decent olive oil, but not very flavorful. Then if you pick that olive early in the harvest, let's say late October, you're going to get a greener olive in color, because what happens is as it ripens, it becomes darker. It can go all the way from different tones of green through to reddish to purple to almost black. It's really much more of a purple that it ends up being. If you pick it earlier in the season, it's going to be greener. The yield will be lower, so you're going to need a lot more olives to extract olive oil out of it. And if you're using varietals like the Arbequina, which to begin with have very little fruit in relationship to the pith, you're going to need an awful lot of those to get a little olive oil out of it. On average, when people ask, well, how many olives does it take to have about half a liter, a 16 fluid ounce bottle? It's roughly about 1,000 olives. And I say roughly because a lot of things depend on being exact, but it gives you an average amount. You need about 1,000 olives to make that half liter of olive oil. As you have noticed also, the only thing that's used to make olive oil, and all the beginning, all extra virgin olive oil starts the same way, is physical force. It's water and then physical force press it. And this makes it a very, very unique oil when you compare it to seed oils and everything else where chemicals are used. No chemical whatsoever is used in the production of this oil. It really is a very natural oil. When you finish the extraction process, you end up with a cloudy liquid. And as you heard at the end, they tend to clean this up within 24 to 48 hours. It's sometimes you see during the gourmet olive oils, some will be cloudy and some won't. That cloudiness is little bits of fruit that have been left in the oil. So from a purely technical perspective, and I would think so, is that you're running the risk if you leave that fruit that it could oxidize the oil faster than it would if it was clean. Speaking of oxidation, olive oil has some enemies. It's light, heat, air. So oxygen is a clear air, is a clear enemy of olive oil. You got to think of olive oil really very much like a fresh product. It really is like a fresh fruit. Yes, we see it as a shelf stable because we see it in a bottle sealed up and on a shelf, but really should be treated very much like a fresh product. When it's finished, it's stored in these huge tanks, stainless steel tanks, which actually refrigerated and have nitrogen. So they've been able to stop time. So one of the things that is recommendable is, when you're buying olive oil, buy just enough to use, but don't overbuy it, because having large quantities stored, the chances are you're not going to be able to keep it in as ideal a condition as your supplier can do. Looking in market, pretty much in the US, you see really two grades of olive oil. We talk a lot of extra virgin, and then we talk of olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil, technically, is an oil that has 0.8% or less free oleic acid, while an olive oil can have 1% minimum or more. To give you a little bit of more information about that. Oleic acid, the free oleic acid, so not just oleic acid, it's free oleic acid, is a result of when the olives have been left out and probably haven't been taken as fast to mill. They will begin to oxidize, and that free oleic acid is released. So what is done once the olive oil is produced, you have a chemical measure that tests the free oleic acid content of the olive oil. This is something you can't taste. Acidity in this free oleic acid, you cannot taste, but it is a marker of quality of the oil. And the other important factor is every extra virgin olive oil should have no taste defects. What's kind of peculiar in the olive oil world, when they do professional tastings, they taste for defects. But I'm going to focus on the positives because that's what we have today. And I think it's what will really be helpful to you. I'm going to teach you is what are the positives that you should look out for. And then we have olive oil, which some people malign. Basically, when you produce this extra virgin olive oil, not all of it is perfect. Some of it will have defects. If it does have defects, then it's further processed. One of the ways they process it, high heat and steam, to take all flavor out of it. So you're left with a neutral olive oil that still is a healthy oil. And then it is blended with a very small percentage of extra virgin olive oil to flavor it. And that's the regular olive oil that most people will probably recommend to cook. Although with extra virgin olive oil, you can also cook. So a little bit of notes about tasting. Here you see a blue cup, and this is traditionally you would use. But as I provided instructions, I asked you to use a wine glass or some other see-through glass to use to taste the olive oil. The blue glass is used to make sure color cannot be seen. We can't help it. We have a prejudice for green. I do as well. I look for a see-through bottle, look at an olive oil, I like seeing green. But that is not a true indicator of the quality of the olive oil. So do not be distracted by color. It's all about taste. Today, we're going to taste 3 olive oils. You should have already your mat printed out and arranged in this order. We're going to start with L'Estonnel, the Vert, the yellow on the left, and then we're going to move through to the right. Let me give you a little bit about technique. First, we're going to warm up the olive oil. We're going to smell it, not taste it. So remember that I want you to warm it up, smell it, start with the number 1 on your left, L'Estonnel. Then what I want you to do is think about this. Is it mild, medium, or intense? And the smell, what is the first impression that I'm getting? Mild, medium, or intense? That's it, nothing else. That's pretty much what we're going to do with all of them. And once we have that idea down, I want you to think of these. This is pretty much when we'll get to the taste part. We're going to have fruity, bitter, pungent. So we have mild, medium, intense, fruity, bitter, pungent. This is basically all you need to know. Fruity means that when you taste it, the olive oil reminds you of the olive fruit. Bitterness, olive oil is bitter. And you will come across, you will find different levels of bitterness, even different kinds of bitterness. sharp bitterness, flat bitterness, green bitterness. There are different types of bitterness. Bitterness is good in an olive oil. What we're doing now is particularly peculiar because actually tasting olive oil straight, which of course no one really does, but we do as a way of showing you how to appreciate the quality of it. And then the last part will be the pungency. The pungency refers to the spicy or the burn that you sometimes get towards the back as you taste it. Again, don't taste. Now we're just going through technique. So the first part is you're going to take that first Restronel. Okay, hope you have it in hand. Warm it up a little bit. Swiggle it around. Take a smell. First impression will probably be, hey, smells like olive oil. Like, yes, it does. I'd also ask you to think about this. Does this extra virgin olive oil remind you of anything green, green vegetation? I will put it to you, yes, it does. Before we get there, going further back, would you qualify this as mild, medium, or intense? Have a good smell. I would say this qualifies as mild, definitely a mild olive oil. This is made from Arbequina olive oil, a very tiny olive, very little fruit on it. This happens also to be an organic production. It comes from the area of Catalonia. And Vea family are the producer of this olive oil. They've been producing it for many years, every year improving their technique. When you taste it, which is going to be the next step, let me first teach you two ways of tasting it, and then you can decide which procedure you want to follow. But the overall objective in whatever technique you finally decide on is you want to spread the taste as much as you can over your tongue and over your mouth to get this full sensation of the olive oil. And as you're tasting it, keep in your mind, mild, medium, intense. What am I getting? And then the other part I'm going to ask you to think about is the fruitiness, the bitterness, and eventually the pungency. And then one other element I would ask you to consider also is the texture. Some oils feel just oily, which is not very pleasant, to be honest. Others feel buttery, almost reminiscent of how, a nice bit of butter would be in your mouth. And others may even taste watery. That arguably could be the result of how that's made. It's just not a very dense olive oil. So think about all these sensations. So here on the right, we have basically a summary of the process that we're going to follow. Sniff, sip, remember these qualities, these ratings, and then at the end we will take an apple. So cheers. Not yet. First, tell you how I'm going to taste, right? Got to do that. Okay. So the first technique is basically a spray technique. And what you do is you put it towards your mouth, you only take a little bit of this olive oil and you suck in air. And that will spread the olive oil all over your mouth. So you get a full sensation of the olive oil. The second technique, which no one's going to hear you, another one you follow, is you pour a little bit of your olive oil, but don't swallow it. You just hold it and spread it. Hold it, spread it, and then swallow. So you have two options. I'm going to go for the spray technique. So number one, now we're tasting the Arbequina. Well, my first impression is, yes, it is mild, but has a little more taste than I expected. In terms of sensations, does have a very clear buttery. Does have a bitterness, but it's very, very slight. On the pungency, extremely mild. So I get a little bit of a tickle towards the back, but very mild. So it's a very, very pleasant olive oil. Now, please take some apple. Really important, have apple, bread, anything. At this stage, we're looking for something acidic that is going to cleanse your palate. The objective is to cleanse your palate. Because if you don't do that, we end up, by the time you get to number 3, you're really tasting a combination of a little bit of one combined with 2, and eventually with 3. So you're getting a combo of the olive oil. So what you're trying to do is clean your palate from the prior oil so you're ready for the second one. So let's have a little bit of green apple. Another way to cleanse your palate is something acidic. And if you want to replicate this in some sort of social context, ice cold kava goes really well. It's acidic, clears it perfectly. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to send everybody a bottle of kava, but I gladly would. Let's move on to the second oil. The second one is the organic Goya. I would encourage you to follow the technique. Smell it, and then compare it to the first one. I put it to you that you're definitely going to get a little more intensity, if not dramatic more intensity. One thing I'd ask you to remember in this process, all extra virgin olive oil, all good extra virgin olive oil should remind you of green vegetation. Slightly green grass, green tomato, green artichoke. And when you hear a lot of this kind of more advanced vocabulary, you're really talking of different grades of greens, in some cases of ripeness in an olive oil, because you can't have a ripe flavor and you can't have very green flavors. So back to this. This is also an organic product. It's a blend of coupage, as they call it in the olive oil world. It has picual, picudo, and hojiblanca. About picual. Picual is a bigger olive oil. Picual basically means pointed. I would say it's the workhorse of Spain's olive oils. It has a very distinct flavor, which I'll tell you a little bit about when we get to especially the last one. One of the big advantages of this oil, apart from taste, where you'll see it really does have a very robust taste, is antioxidants. It's very high in phenol content. So that is a health benefit for people who use it, and also long shelf life. So you have two things that really go very well for it. So let's smell it again. I certainly get a lot more intensity on this oil. I will put this in definitely either the medium to intense, but definitely in the medium category. So let's taste it. Impressions. I get the fruity in the beginning. The bitterness is definitely a lot sharper on this one. Intensity, definitely I will put on a clear medium. The pungency is higher. I wouldn't call it intense, but definitely higher. And I get that pungency towards the end, but also very pleasant. On the texture, this is definitely not as buttery, but I wouldn't term it oily either. It's denser, it's pleasant, definitely a very good olive oil. And again, it reminds you of green vegetation. So you see the process we're following: mild, medium, intense, fruity, bitter, pungent. These are the basics. With this, you can really evaluate any olive oil. And of course, we're talking of extra virgin olive oils. So let's have a little bit of apple. I hope you're not hearing me crunch. Not using the mute, so you don't hear me. I must say it's a very strange experience not seeing anybody. Okay, now we're on to our last olive oil. This is Tierra Callada, which literally would mean quiet soil or quiet land. And there's a whole history as to why this got its name. It really comes from a poem. It's a monovarietal. It's a picual. It's picked in October, so it's picked early. And the important thing is this: if you pick an olive oil later in season, you're going to get probably a a riper flavor. You're not going to get these green notes, these intensities that you get with an olive oil that's picked early in the season. But the one thing then that the producer is sacrificing yield, because he's going to need a lot more olives to produce this little bit of high quality olive oil. And most of the high quality olive oils, all the high quality olive oils, tend to be picked early in the season. They're not late season olive oils. So October, late October, early November is pretty much when they're picked. And when they're picking them, there's the whole process. You have agronomers, experts, that once the season comes in, they will go out to the field, pick the olives, back to the lab, press the olives, and make a decision. Is today the day? Maybe yes, maybe no. Today's not the day. So wait another day, another couple of days. Back to the field, pick the olives, back to the lab. Is it ready to be picked? So this process is done lot by lot by lot. And this is what you do to really ensure that the olive is going to be at its optimum point to make the olive oil. So you can see there's a lot of effort and a lot of resources that go into making sure that the olive is just right to come up with your olive oil. So let's smell it. Compared to the second one, you may compare to the first one. I'm definitely going to see some very, very big differences. I would put it to you that this single variety Picual reminds you of a green tomato leaf. And normally what I mean is you grab that leaf, you crush it, or maybe even green grass. That smell is typical of Picual. I could almost bet that if you can memorize this is a very good one, by the way, you would know this Picual in that olive oil. And given the quantity of olive oil we make, this one could be anything from 20 to 25% of the world's crop. So we make a lot of this olive oil. So let's taste it. Take a little bit. This is definitely on the intense end, but I would put it between medium intense. Definitely not a super intense oil. Very, very pleasant. Wonderful texture. Almost buttery, reminiscent of butter, but with flavor. You definitely have a fruity note, like get reminded of the olive. Definitely bitterness. Right now, a little bit of a loss of words how to define that bitterness, but it's not a sharp bitterness. But it's not a flat bitterness either. Best I could describe it as probably a flat bitterness. On the pungency, yes, definitely I begin to feel it now, but I feel it at the top of my throat, not at the bottom, and not a burning sensation. Actually, very, very, very balanced. So definitely I'll put this medium to intense. All the green notes are definitely there. Wonderful texture. It's an impressive olive oil. And the one thing you will find when you taste Picuals, you can say some Picuals, which I would say is like a horse kicking you. It's just horrible. But technically it's correct, but I wouldn't say it's a fine olive oil. Really what I look for in an olive oil is, and I'll put it to you, it's very much like a fine liquor. You want smoothness and taste. You want a balance. And to get that, well, that's the skill of the producers, which has been years and years of work. So this is a little bit of how the olive oil tasting. Sorry about that. Go back to here. So once you've got the basics down, which is this, mild, medium, intense, fruity, bitter, pungent. That's it. You have the skills to evaluate what is a good olive oil. It will remind you of greens, okay? Think of green grass, think of green tomato leaf, and this is the beginning. These are the, and you're gonna, when you're tasting it, you get first what are called the obvious flavors that come to the front of your palate. And as you get good at this, you're eventually going to be able to detect that some olive oils have a secondary amount of flavors. So they're not just a flat series of flavors. You begin to detect probably what are called like an artichoke leaf. Or some of you will even get almonds. Some of you may even get banana. And the flavors go on. Some even green apple. I've had some arbequinas that have a real distinct green apple, which are absolutely wonderful. So all these things are secondary flavors you will be able to pick up. But that's, you know, when you become more advanced. But the basics. A great extra virgin olive will remind you of fresh vegetation, fresh greens. You rate it on the mild, medium, intense. And you have the 3 adjectives you need to have, which is it's bitter, fruity, pungent. That's it. You're an olive oil taster. And really just to wrap up, this is a very, very healthy product. And here I'm just sharing some brief research that was done on phytochemicals. And the conclusion they came here is that when you cook with olive oil, especially with things like tomato and onion, some of these phytochemicals between what the tomato already has and the olive oil has, you really end up with a very potent phenolic mixture, which all means healthier food for you. And as probably many of you know, olive oil is very much part of the Mediterranean diet, extra virgin olive oil. Of course, it's not the only thing, but it's one of the basic, it's the basic fat that you use in cooking with it. So olive oil is good for you. And it's versatile. You can do many, many, many things from it. I'll put it to you, the most basic thing is, which I love to do, good for breakfast, good for lunch. Just grab a ripe tomato, put it through a cheese grater, add a tasty extra virgin olive oil. I would like something like a piqual, because I like to have that intensity of flavor. Put it in a nice bit of a crunchy type of French loaf or a baguette. It's absolutely wonderful and simple. Another one, if you get more sophisticated, is doing like a spin on gazpacho, which is basically, I would say, a cold tomato soup that has vegetables where they do it, but you can substitute it by combining tomato and watermelon, especially towards summer. And of course, there's the basic vinaigrette. And the vinaigrette, a lot of chefs are taught, is 1 part vinegar, 2 parts olive oil. Now, I put it to you, that's way too much vinegar. Vinegar is intense. What you want to do is be very stingy with the vinegar, and based on the intensity of that olive oil, measure, but you want more olive oil in relationship to the vinegar. I will put it, you want 1/6 vinegar or 1/7 vinegar. Then I would add a tiny little bit of honey. And the honey, as you beat it, just helps the emulsification process. So when you pour it on the salad, you get a good, not just a spread, but also something that will cling a little bit to the leaves and gives you very pleasant. And chefs have been tremendously imaginative what they can do with olive oil. Here you see some that actually ended up making little pearls. That's what you see on top of that ham. So of course, a part that you could just have actually serrano ham with a little bit of olive oil and bread. Another great simple snack. They actually managed to make these little spheres that they put on top of the ham. So as you bite it, they explode in your mouth, which is actually incredible. And on the bottom left, right-hand corner, you see something that looks like a popcorn. It is popcorn, but made from olive oil. What they've done is they basically let drops fall into nitrogen and they pop. And for a period of time, they look like a popcorn. So it's a lot of crazy stuff that you can do with it, and interesting. And with this, I conclude. You can get in touch with me for any questions. And if you're interested in some of the olive oils, of course, where to find these olive oils. And I would put it to you, we have Spain has some great olive oils. These are all gourmet level olive oils. There is a difference between an everyday olive oil and a gourmet one. And it's all about taste, taste, taste. It really is a superior flavor in I would say the more gourmet olive oils. And with this, I'd like to pass on to our next speaker, Ariadna, who has patiently stayed up late at night directly from Catalonia to tell us about her wonderful mineral water. And I can testify for it. I've had it at home. I like combining it with lemonade. It's really good stuff. Over to you, Ariadna.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good night from Spain. First, let me thank Culture and Foods from Spain to let us join this amazing webinar. Let me share my screen. So we would like you to join us on a beautiful journey, a journey that starts in a very unique place, our source, in the volcanic natural park of La Garrocha. Josie, if you could help me sharing the video, I would. Thank you. So our source is in a tiny village called Sant Aniol de Finestres, at about 1 hour and a half from Barcelona, in the lap of the Pyrenees, close to France. It is a unique place, all green, nothing around, just the birds singing, and there is not even mobile line. We inspired on the volcanic rocks of the natural park to create our most iconic and premium bottle, rocks. So let me. But before entering into the uniqueness of Sant Aniol, I would like to introduce a bit the difference between waters. It is common to hear that all waters are the same, but the difference between waters is big. The first distinction to be made is between purified natural mineral waters, spring waters. So this one is easy. Source of mineral waters is pure natural source, and no treatment can be applied that could modify its original and natural composition. Whereas purified is processed to make it potable. There are plenty of ways to make water drinkable. But to sum up, filtration systems are applied that removes not only microorganisms and impurities, but also can reduce minerals and nutrients that are beneficial. On the opposite side, nothing can be done to natural mineral waters or source waters that could change its natural composition. No chemical treatments are allowed, as it is pure and potable from its origin. Its purity is the result of natural filtration through earth layers. And this is the key point to understand the difference between mineral waters. You cannot find two waters with the same composition. Just moving 100 feet, a composition will be different, as the type of the earth layers would be different. In Europe, compared to the US, it is not common at all to find purified waters, as we have plenty of natural mineral waters sources all around Europe. And that is why most of the renowned mineral water brands are from Europe and they are exported globally. With the tendency on organic and natural foods, the search for natural mineral waters has increased. As mentioned, each mineral water is unique, and so it is its composition. Is the composition what determines the quality of the water? Low mineral waters are suitable for everyone, whereas hard ones, that means with high mineral content, are recommended only for specific consumers linked to nutritional needs. Sant Aniol, as an example, is considered high-quality water and appreciated in high-end gastronomy for especially for its low level of sodium in combination with the high bicarbonate. Low sodium doesn't affect the flavor of the foods. So that is why chefs appreciate it, because it doesn't affect the flavor of their dishes. And bicarbonate, it helps with the digestion. So finally, just a quick view a bit on Sant Aniol company. Sant Aniol is still a family business, and since the very beginning, we had the goal to spread our volcanic spirit worldwide. And to maintain this uniqueness, we are obsessed about quality controls and protect all the bottling process. And we have been able to obtain some of the strictest certifications worldwide. I'm sure you now can understand how focused we are in maintaining and protecting our source. We have been exporting for more than 15 years. US is our first market. and we are already present in more than 30 countries. We are proud to see our water in some of the most premium and prestigious outlets, and also we partner with some strategic retailers in different countries. Our brand ambassadors are mainly chefs that help us to understand well how and what are the benefits of the water related with nutrition and food. We also take care of our community, and we have partnerships with NGOs. A view in our portfolio, as you've seen, we have the premium range. This is the most iconic bottle for us, and it is an exclusive bottle. We have also the classic range. We won an award for the design of the label because with the effect of the light, it seems that the water has colors. And we have the basic and convenience plastic range that is also inspired on the volcanic rocks of the natural park and is BPA free. And then I would like to focus a bit on 500 drops. This is the result of our focus on sustainability. Sustainability for us is not an objective, it's like our engine. So we decided to create this line. It's 100% recycled plastic and obvious recyclable. We wanted to go one step further. Some other brands have started to include the percentage, but we wanted to make the all-in, to make a full line and to make it 100% recycled, not just a 20 or a 10. As you may know, there are some states in the US that have already started to regulate and to make compulsory to include recycled plastic. And once we were building the project, we came up with the idea of what we call message on a bottle. So we have included different sentences in the bottles that changes. So the idea is that that every time the consumer buys a bottle, it finds a different sentence. And they are all like funny sentences related to sustainability. For example, I could swear I've been here before. I have more lives than a cat. Or happy to see you again. So the idea is to increase the sustainability consciousness of consumers. So thank you for sharing this trip with us, and hope you join us spreading our volcanic spirit. We would love to send you some samples to try the water. So please just grab me an email and we will organize it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Culture, for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey and Ariadna. That was just fascinating all the way around. I feel like I learned so much there, and I'm sure you all did too. Does anyone have any questions for either of our guests today, or either of our presenters? We've had some nice observations here in the chat, but does anyone have questions? No, well, it was a quiet group today, but thank you so much for joining us. We really hope you enjoyed it. And as Ariadna said, if you want to try the water, be sure to send her an email. She'll make sure to get that to you. And, you know, Jeffrey and Foods of Spain, those folks are always available to answer questions. We will be following up with an email with further information for you. So, and a copy of the link to this video if you want to share it, or if you feel like you want to rewatch certain things. So I will say goodbye for Culture, and let Jeffrey and Ariadna say goodbye as well.
Okay, I just thank you all for participating. And just want to leave you one thought, of course, is extra virgin olive oil from Spain. We have some of the best in the world. Please spread the word, and please eat some good extra virgin olive oil. Premium extra virgin olive oil does make a difference. So it should be part of your pantry and encouraged to be part of your client's pantry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, also from Spain, and I encourage you also to try waters, try the difference between purified and natural mineral waters, and would be more than welcome to send you some samples. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Buonanotte.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches was Italian.